What if I told you that at this very moment, your SP is already feeling a pull they can't explain, a quiet ache, a restlessness, a sense that something is missing and that something is you. There is a law at work right now, whether you are aware of it or not. A law that does not respond to effort, force, or chasing, but to assumption. Tonight you will learn how your inner state alone causes your SP to miss you in a way they cannot ignore, rationalize, or escape. This is not magic. This is consciousness in motion. Your SP does not miss you because of distance, nor because days have passed without a word. They do not miss you because of silence, absence, or time. They miss you for one reason and one reason alone. You are occupying the throne of your own awareness, and what you are aware of being, the world must echo back to you without choice. Now let me tell you this plainly, because it must be understood. Nothing outside of you has the power to create feeling, longing, or desire in another. There is no power in circumstances. There is no power in separation. There is no power in what you can see with your physical eyes. The power entirely within you, and it always has been. The moment you become conscious of yourself as unforgettable, the moment you accept that idea without argument, consciousness takes it as fact. And what consciousness accepts must express itself. You see, the world is not responding to what you want. It never has. It is responding to what you assume yourself to be. If you assume you are forgotten, you will find evidence everywhere to support it. If you assume you are missed, you will feel a quiet confidence rise within you that does not need proof. And that feeling, that inner knowing, is the creative act itself. Do not think for a moment that another person has free will apart from the state you occupy. They are not choosing whether to miss you. They are responding automatically to the concept of self you are entertaining. You do not compel them with effort or words. You influence them by being. And being always precedes doing. Most people try to make something happen on the outside. They reach out, they wait, they analyze, they hope. But the one who understands the law knows that nothing is ever made to happen. It is only allowed. And allowance comes when you stop questioning and start assuming. Ask yourself now, quietly and honestly, who are you being aware of yourself as? Are you the one hoping to be remembered? Or are you the one who knows they linger in another's mind effortlessly? Because the moment you shift from desire to identity, the entire mechanism of reality shifts with you. You do not need to imagine your SP missing you as a future event. That is not the work. The work is to feel what it would be like if missing you were already natural for them. Not dramatic, not emotional, natural, obvious, like knowing your own name. When something feels natural, consciousness accepts it without resistance. And when consciousness accepts it, the outer world has no choice but to conform. Understand this. Your SP cannot escape the state you hold them in within your awareness. If you carry them as someone who longs for you, who feels your absence, who feels drawn back to you, they must move in accordance with that image. Not because you forced them, but because you gave them no other role to play. You are not sending thoughts to them. You are not reaching across space. There is no distance in consciousness. You are simply selecting a state, and everyone involved rearranges themselves to match it. That is how this works. Always has. And when you stop telling the story of silence, when you stop repeating the idea of distance, when you stop identifying with lack, something extraordinary happens. The mind becomes still. The desire loses its urgency. You no longer feel the need to check, to confirm, to ask. And that stillness is the sign that the assumption has been accepted. See, that moment your SP begins to feel something they cannot explain. Not because you willed it, but because you withdrew your awareness from absence and placed it firmly on presence. They may feel restless, they may feel nostalgic, they may suddenly think of you without knowing why. That is not coincidence, that is reflection. Do not concern yourself with how it will happen. Consciousness does not concern itself with methods. It only concerns itself with states. You choose the state and the method appears on its own. The phone call, the message, the memory, the pull. It arranges itself naturally, effortlessly. Your only responsibility is to remain loyal to the assumption, not forcefully, not anxiously, gently, faithfully. When the old thoughts arise, you do not fight them. You simply return to the knowing, I am unforgettable. I remain with them. And in doing so, you reseat yourself on the throne of awareness. For when you know who you are within, the world cannot help but remind others of you without your lifting a single finger. And now let us go further, because once you have seated yourself upon that throne, there is a temptation that quietly arises, a habit so common that most do not even notice it. It is the habit of looking for signs, looking for movement, looking for proof that what you have assumed is working. And I tell you plainly, the one who looks is the one who doubts. Understand this deeply. The moment you begin to check the outer world to see if it has changed, you have already confessed inwardly that it has not. You cannot look for what you are convinced is already so. No one searches the room for the chair they are sitting on. And yet, so many sit in imagination while standing in doubt. When you keep watch on appearances, when you measure time, when you scan messages, silence, or behavior, you are silently declaring, it is not yet complete. And consciousness responds faithfully to that declaration. Not to punish you, but to mirror you. You must see this clearly. Effort is not faith. Waiting is not belief. Watching is not knowing. These are all movements of a mind that has not yet accepted its own assumption. The law does not ask you to strain, convince, or manipulate. It asks only that you rest in what you have claimed. There is a profound instruction that few truly hear. Do not lift a finger. This does not mean you sit frozen in life. It means you do not attempt to assist consciousness in doing its work. The moment you try to help it along, you imply it is insufficient without you. And consciousness, being obedient, reflects that insufficiency back to you. When you stop checking, something subtle but powerful occurs. The mind relaxes, the inner tension dissolves. You are no longer leaning forward into the future, hoping it arrives. You return to yourself. And that return is the signal of completion. Completion is not loud, it is quiet, it feels like, of course. It feels settled, it feels done. And it is this state, this inward closure, that is magnetic, not desire, not longing, not effort. Completion, you see, absence of effort is not indifference, it is confidence. It is the calm knowing that what you have assumed does not require supervision. And when you reach this state, you no longer wonder if they are thinking of you. You simply move through your day with the ease of someone who knows they are already present in another's mind. This is why absence of effort creates presence. The moment you stop chasing the echo, you become the sound. The moment you stop looking outward for reassurance, the world begins to rearrange itself inwardly in others. For people do not respond to need, they respond to certainty. Ask yourself this: if you truly knew you were on their mind, would you be checking? Would you be counting days? Would you be interpreting silence? Or would you simply live, knowing that what is yours moves toward you naturally? Every time you resist the urge to look, you strengthen the assumption. Every time you refuse to ask, where is it? You affirm, it is. And this quiet discipline is what separates the one who imagines from the one who believes. Do not be disturbed if the outer world appears unchanged for a time. That appearance is not delay, it is adjustment. Consciousness must reorganize patterns, habits, and perceptions. And it does so most efficiently when you stop interfering with it. When you withdraw your attention from appearances, you remove the fuel that keeps old states alive. Silence loses its meaning, time loses its power, distance loses its authority, and in that vacuum, a new movement begins, not in you, but in them. They begin to feel something they cannot name. A thought returns uninvited. A memory surfaces without cause. A sense of lack appears where there was once indifference, and they do not know why, because the cause was never outside of you to begin with. You did not do anything to make this happen. You stopped doing. You stopped asking the mirror to change while still holding the same expression. You allowed the new image to settle, and once it settled, the reflection had no choice but to follow. So when the impulse arises to check, to wait, to wonder, see it for what it is, the old state asking for attention. Do not fight it. Simply return to your knowing. Return to the feeling of completion. Return to the inner posture of one who does not seek confirmation because they no longer require it. For the moment you stop looking is the moment you have found. And having found it inwardly, do not turn it once again into something you merely visit in imagination. This is where many falter. They imagine being missed, they feel it briefly, and then they step back into the old role of the one who wants. That is not the work. The work is to become the one who is missed. You are not asked to picture them longing for you as though it were a scene happening somewhere else. That still places you outside the state. You are asked to move into a new identity. For assumption is not an act you perform. It is a position you occupy. It is who you are being aware of yourself as. When you live from being missed, your inner conversations change without effort. Your posture changes, your tone changes, the way you move through the day changes. You are no longer thinking about them thinking of you. You are simply living as one who is already held in another's mind. There is a great difference between saying, I hope they miss me, and quietly knowing I am on their mind. One is desire, the other is identity, and consciousness responds only to identity. You do not need to repeat words endlessly or strain to feel something dramatic. In fact, if it feels dramatic, it is still desire. Identity feels ordinary, it feels settled, it feels natural. You do not wake each morning declaring your name to remember it. You know it. And in the same way, when you have assumed the state of being missed, you no longer announce it inwardly. You simply move from it. Notice how differently you would think if this were already true. You would not be wondering what they are doing. You would not be analyzing their behavior. You would not be waiting for a sign. Your mind would rest. And that rest is the surest sign that you have shifted states. The world you encounter each day is only the after effect of the state you are living from. So if you continue to encounter longing, lack, or uncertainty, do not condemn yourself. Simply recognize that you have not yet fully moved. And movement is always inward. To live from being missed means you stop rehearsing stories of separation. You stop revisiting conversations that never happened. You stop explaining why it hasn't shown up yet. Those habits belong to the old self, and you cannot carry them into a new state. When the thought arises, why haven't I heard from them? Gently replace it with the knowing, I am present with them. Not as a technique, view. T as a correction of identity. You are not convincing yourself. You are remembering who you have decided to be, and this decision, once made, must be lived. It must show up in how you treat yourself, in how you value your time, in how you no longer put your life on pause waiting for a response. The one who is missed does not orbit another. They are centered within themselves. This is why assumption creates reality, not because it forces the world, but because it reorganizes you. And when you reorganize yourself, the world reorganizes around you automatically. People often ask how long it takes. That question itself reveals the state. Time is only relevant when something is not yet yours. When you live from being missed, time loses meaning. You are no longer counting. You are occupying. And from this occupation, something subtle but inevitable occurs. Others begin to feel your absence as presence. They sense a gap where you belong. They feel drawn, not because you pulled them, but because you are no longer reaching. This is the paradox that few understand. The moment you stop trying to be remembered, you become unforgettable. The moment you stop seeking to be chosen, you become choice itself. For consciousness does not chase, it attracts by being. So walk through your day as one who is already held in thought. Speak as one who does not need reassurance. Think as one who is secure in their place, not arrogantly, quietly, naturally, as though it has always been so. And if the old feeling tries to return, do not wrestle with it. Simply step back into your chosen identity. For states are like rooms. You leave one by entering another. And the room you now occupy is the one from which the world will speak back to you. And once you are living from that state, once you have moved into the identity of the one who is missed, the inner world begins to speak differently. This is where creation truly unfolds. For the words you allow within yourself are the seeds from which all outer experience grows. Every moment of your day is filled with inner conversations. You are always speaking inwardly, even when you are silent outwardly. And these conversations are not harmless. They are not idle. They are the very channels through which consciousness expresses itself. What you say inwardly, you eventually hear outwardly. Now understand this clearly. When you hear their voice within you, you are not imagining in the sense that the world uses that word. You are selecting a reality. You are tuning consciousness to a frequency. And once tuned, everything must follow that arrangement. If inwardly you hear silence, rejection, or distance, do not be surprised when it appears in your world. But when you allow yourself to hear them say, I can't stop thinking about you, you are not forcing their mouth to move. You are consenting to a state in which such words are natural. Consent is the key. The mind does not manifest what you repeat casually. It manifests what you accept as true. And acceptance happens when the conversation feels normal, unstrained, and believable to you. You are not trying to make something happen. You are agreeing that it already is. These inner conversations must be gentle. They must feel ordinary. If you strain, you are still desiring. If you argue with the voice, you are still doubting. But when you simply allow the conversation to unfold as though it were the most natural thing in the world, you have entered the creative act. You do not need to sit for hours repeating words. A single inward exchange accepted fully is enough. One sentence felt as true can rearrange a lifetime. The power is not in repetition, it is in belief. When you hear them speak lovingly inwardly, notice how it changes you. Notice how your shoulders relax. Notice how your breathing softens. Notice how your need dissolves. That change in you is the sign that creation has already occurred. The outer world is merely catching up. Do not concern why. Ourself with whether it feels real at first. Reality is not determined by familiarity. It is determined by persistence. Every state was once unfamiliar. You persist not by force, but by returning to it whenever you notice you have wandered, and do not worry about whether you are doing it correctly. There is no correct voice, no perfect words. There is only sincerity. If the conversation feels true to you, it is effective. Consciousness does not judge your language. It responds to your acceptance. When you allow these inner conversations, you are not manipulating another. You are assigning them a role based on the state you have chosen. And they will play that role faithfully, because everyone is always acting from the state they are perceived in. This is why you must be careful with your inner speech. For the same voice that can whisper longing can also rehearse loss. And whatever you rehearse inwardly, you strengthen. If you catch yourself replaying old arguments or imagined disappointments, do not despair. Simply replace them gently, calmly, without resistance. Say inwardly what you would love to hear. Hear it once, feel it, and let it be. You are not required to convince yourself endlessly. You are required only to agree, and agreement is a quiet thing. As you continue in this way, you will find that your inner conversations begin to arise naturally. You will not have to initiate them. They will appear on their own because the state has been accepted. And when they arise without effort, you know you have impressed consciousness. From this point, the outer world must respond. It cannot do otherwise. For the world is only a mirror, and it reflects not what you wish for, but what you allow yourself to hear and believe within. And so you speak inwardly, not to escape reality, but to select it. For what you consent to in silence becomes what you hear aloud. And as you begin to speak inwardly from the new state, something else becomes clear. There is no room left for the old story. You cannot carry two versions of yourself at the same time. You cannot be the one who is remembered and the one who is abandoned simultaneously. One state must yield for the other to take its place. Most struggle here, not because letting go is difficult, but because they try to let go with effort. They wrestle with the past. They argue with memory. They try to erase what once felt real. That is not the way. The old story is not released through force. It is released through disinterest. A story lives only as long as you keep telling it. The moment you stop repeating it inwardly, it begins to fade. Not dramatically, but quietly. And quiet disappearance is the surest kind. You see, the story of separation, silence, or rejection feels real only because you keep returning to it. You revisit it in thought. You explain it. You justify it. You ask why it happened. And every time you do, you breathe life into a state that no longer serves you. But when you have assumed a new identity, when you live as the one who is missed, when your inner conversations are aligned, something shifts. The old story no longer fits. It feels heavy, awkward, out of place. And that discomfort is not failure, it is evidence of growth. Do not try to destroy the old state. Simply stop occupying it. States are not removed, they are abandoned. And they are abandoned the moment you stop visiting them. Indifference is the true sign of change. Not anger, not sadness, indifference. When you can think of the old story and feel nothing rise within you, you have left it behind. And what no longer stirs you no longer creates. If a memory appears, let it pass. Do not analyze it. Do not correct it. Do not fight it. Fighting keeps it alive. Instead, return to your chosen knowing. Return to the feeling of being centered, complete, remembered. That return is your power. Understand this. Consciousness does not punish you for remembering the past. It simply reflects what you dwell upon. So when the past comes and you refuse to dwell, it loses authority. You are not required to forgive or forget in any dramatic sense. You are required only to withdraw belief. The past has no power without your agreement. An agreement is always voluntary. This is why I say you cannot occupy two states at once. The moment you step fully into the new one, the old one dissolves on its own, not because you pushed it away, but because you stopped feeding it, and feeding happens through attention. Wherever attention goes, life follows. So give your attention not to what was, but to what you have chosen to be. You will know you have released the old story when you no longer explain yourself inwardly, when you no longer rehearse justifications, when you no longer feel the need to protect yourself against disappointment. Those defenses belong to the old identity. The new identity does not defend. It rests. It does not question. It knows. As you continue in this way, you may notice moments where the old state tries to reassert itself. That is natural. Habits do not disappear instantly. But remember this, a habit survives only through repetition. When repetition ends, so does the habit. Each time you choose a new state, you weaken the old one. Each time you refuse to indulge the old narrative, you strengthen the new reality. And this strengthening happens quietly beneath awareness until one day you realize the old story feels distant, irrelevant, unreal, and what feels unreal cannot manifest. It has no substance, no form, no echo. So do not announce that you are letting go. Do not make a ceremony of it. Simply stop returning. Stop explaining. Stop identifying. Let the old story fade from lack of interest, for consciousness only continues what you continue to be. And as you remain faithful to the new state, the past loses its voice and the present reshapes itself accordingly. And as the old story loses its grip, another refinement must occur, one that many overlook. You must understand that creation does not respond to intensity. It responds to naturalness. What feels forced remains distant. What feels ordinary becomes inevitable. There is a mistaken belief that you must feel something powerful, overwhelming, or emotionally charged in order to impress consciousness. That is not so. Intensity belongs to desire. Naturalness belongs to fulfillment. When something is truly yours, you do not react to it emotionally. You accept it quietly. Consider the things you know to be true about yourself. You do not affirm them with passion. You do not strain to believe them. You simply know. And it is this same knowing that must accompany your assumption. If you find yourself trying to feel more, pushing emotion, repeating words with urgency, understand that you are still standing outside the state. Fulfillment does not shout, it whispers. It feels calm, it feels settled, it feels like nothing special, and that is precisely why it is powerful. When missing you feels natural, you stop checking whether it is happening. You stop reacting emotionally to silence or time. You stop needing reassurance. Not because you have numbed yourself, but because you have accepted a new normal. This is how you know you are doing it correctly. There is relief. There is ease. There is no internal debate. You are not asking, is this working? Because that question no longer arises. The mind has moved on. You must allow the assumption to become boring. That is not a failure, it is success. The moment something feels ordinary, it has been accepted. And what is accepted must externalize. Think of it this way. The sun does not strain to rise. It rises because it is natural for it to do so. And in the same way, when your assumption feels obvious, it begins to express itself without resistance. If you still feel excitement mixed with anxiety, do not condemn yourself. Simply soften. Let go of the need to feel anything at all. Return to neutrality. Return to simplicity. Say inwardly, not with emotion, but with quiet certainty, this is how it is. The mind wants drama. Consciousness wants agreement. Many believe that emotion is the engine of creation. Emotion may accompany the shift, but it is not the cause. Acceptance is the cause. Naturalness is the sign. When you reach this state, you will notice that you think of your SP less often, but when you do, there is no ache, there is no longing, there is familiarity. And that familiarity is the assumption made flesh. You may even wonder if you still care. Do not mistake calm for indifference. Calm is confidence, calm is knowing, calm is the absence of resistance, and it is precisely here that the outer world begins to move most decisively. Not when you are watching, not when you are feeling intensely, but when you have returned to yourself. For when you are no longer emotionally entangled with the outcome, you are no longer blocking it. You have removed yourself from the way. Missing you becomes inevitable when your presence is assumed. When it no longer feels like a hope, a wish, or desire, but simply a fact. And facts do not require emotion. They require acceptance. So allow the feeling to settle. Let it lose its charge. Let it become part of the background of who you are. The quieter it becomes, the deeper it impresses. You are not trying to create something extraordinary. You are allowing what is natural to emerge, and what is natural always finds its way into expression. And now there remains only one thing, simple in its instruction, yet profound in its effect, persistence. Not the persistence of force, not the persistence of struggle, but the persistence of faithful return. For once a state has been chosen, it must be occupied until it feels more real than anything that contradicts it. not waver. Wavering is not a failure of ability, it is a divided loyalty. You look at appearances and ask them to confirm what you have already decided. Appearances are always delayed. They are shadows. They are echoes. They cannot speak first. They can only answer. When you negotiate with what you see, you abandon what you know. The outer world will always try to persuade you back into the old state. It does not do this out of malice. It does it out of habit. And habits dissolve only when they are no longer returned to. Persistence does not mean constant effort. It means constancy of assumption. It means that whenever you notice yourself slipping into doubt, you gently return, not with frustration, not with urgency, but with familiarity. As one returns home, you are not asked to fight your thoughts, you are asked to outgrow them. And you outgrow them by choosing again. Every return strengthens the state. Every refusal to react weakens the old one. There will be moments when nothing seems to be happening. That is not absence of movement, that is integration. Consciousness is rearranging itself. Patterns are dissolving. New pathways are forming. And this occurs most efficiently when you remain calm. If you expect instant confirmation, you place a condition on faith. And faith with conditions is still doubt. True persistence does not watch the clock. It does not argue with delay. It rests. The law never fails, but it never hurries either. It moves with precision. It moves with accuracy. And it moves in accordance with the depth of your acceptance. Some persist for a day and then abandon the state because nothing has appeared. Others persist only when they feel confident and retreat when doubt arises. But persistence is not measured by how long you feel good. It is measured by how often you return. When doubt arises, do not dramatize it. Do not label it as sabotage. Simply see it as a reminder to re-enter the state you have chosen. You do not argue with a door when you walk through it. And so you walk back into the knowing, again and again, quietly, faithfully, until it becomes the path of Le. As resistance, at first, persistence feels like practice. Later, it feels like habit. And eventually, it feels like truth. You must allow the assumption to settle into the subconscious, where it no longer requires your attention. That is when it begins to objectify. For the subconscious does not question. It executes. This is why persistence must be gentle. Harsh persistence keeps the assumption in the conscious mind where it can be debated. Gentle persistence allows it to sink, where it can act. Do not concern yourself with setbacks. There are none. There are only moments of forgetting followed by remembering. And remembering is always enough. Every time you choose the state over the appearance, you declare your allegiance. Every time you remain unmoved by contradiction, you deepen the impression. And every deep impression must externalize. You are not bending reality to your will. You are allowing reality to align with your consciousness. And consciousness, once impressed, does not reverse itself. So persist not because you are afraid it will not happen, but because you know how the law works. Persist not because you are waiting, but because you are established. The assumption will harden into fact, not by chance, not by luck, but by law. And law responds only to consistency. Remain loyal to the unseen. Remain unmoved by delay. Remain anchored in the knowing you have chosen. For what you sustain inwardly must, in its appointed hour, appear outwardly. You are not waiting to be chosen. You are remembering who you are. And as you return to the state of being desired, valued, and deeply missed, the world, including your SPI, has no choice but to follow, because consciousness is the only reality. You awaken in them a magnetic pull they cannot resist. There is no such thing as isolation in consciousness. You are in union with all you think upon. To think of them is to touch them. To speak inwardly to them is to send a message clearer than any letter or word could carry. And the beauty is that you need not force, you need not strain, you need not beg. A whisper in consciousness is stronger than a shout in the world. A calm, steady assumption carried in silence is more persuasive